Alright guys, I'm gonna do a very quick unboxing of the X Skims from Refina, and as you see, voice is a wee bit gone here with hay fever, bit of a sore throat. So just gonna do this very quickly as I'm trying to get to work here too, and hopefully give you a wee rundown on these in action as well. The X Skims are spatulas, and a quick look at them already. Pardon me. And they do look very similar to the Isaac. So the longest one here. Oh, it's ready to go. Going to actually keep that box for storage. So this is one of the bigger ones. It is 111. Very nice. Again, handles comfortable. You can see me spatulaing the ceilings with that too. Easily turned. That's one thing I might notice about it straight away. It's very easily manoeuvred, you know, down to clean. So it's actually well worth a note. I know the other ones, you know, have a bit more of a hook. Lovely blade protector. It's quite big. So definitely think Refina's evolving with these. You take the top out and the blade is replaceable now. And then put that back in. So that's it, guys. This is the X Skim for Refina spatula, and do have other sizes, and I'll try and show you them on the job and get these things in action for you.
So here we are at the job, using my little cheap saber saw to cut these boards. Just thought this would be an interesting video to not only show the X Skim from Refina, the spatula, but to also just talk about this actual wee job here and what's going on. So you're probably thinking why I'm using a power tool to cut plasterboard. This isn't any normal plasterboard, and I'll show you it up close very shortly, and you'll understand why I'm using the saw to cut through it. So this is how thick it is, guys. It's got like an insulation and 2 final coatings and very thick plasterboard, and this stuff is very heavy. Even that bit there, it's probably 25 kilograms. It's very dense. It's very heavy, and the reason for that is it's soundboard. If any of you have come across it, you'll know what it is. The white stuff I had on the wall there was like an adhesive as well, and I put it along all the joints as well, so that hopefully it'll help block out any sound. So doing it to help soundproof the room a bit. And I did turn up this job thinking that it was a stud wall that I was working over, but it's a masonry wall. It's made of brick or block, so it has to be drilled and screwed and plugged here. And thankfully, the guy at the house had all ready. I just came with a load of I thought it was insulated boards. I didn't realise what the boards actually were and stuff until I landed and tried to pick one up, and nearly had a heart attack at the weight of it. But yeah, so that's the story with them. So I'm gluing them and I'm screwing them. There were, on the legs of the boards up to my left there, I think it was like 9 screws were the recommended amount. The screws don't have big massive heads on them, but they are actually gripping it really well. There's no doubt about that. Even if I was to sink through the plasterboard, the vinyl on the other side, it'll not pull through that. Plus, like I said, it being glued, it's balls and braces. And back to the point that I was actually making there was that not only do they say to put 9 in for each one of them, we sort of like quarter boards. I was putting a lot more in. I actually went around and just staggered them, broke up the joints a wee bit more with them and put extra in before I actually went ahead and plastered. You can see again the saw or saber saw, whatever you want to call it. It's one of the only ways to go. You can't cut this stuff with a Stanley knife, and you'd be there some time with a handsaw. Like I say, the walls all getting plastered. There is a couple of wee gaps around, and I will show you what I do with them, with the plaster itself, how much I actually really press the plaster in. I try to fill all the voids so that it's quite solid, and just again for insulation purposes. People, most times when you think of insulation, you think it's for cold or fireproof insulation, but there is actually sound insulation as well. So all that all adds up. Again, I could probably get you a link to these boards if you were wanting a soundproof room, or you maybe doing a studio or something. And apparently these boards were very, very expensive. And they came, I think when they came, the guy said they lifted them off on one pallet, or expected him to have a forklift. And I can understand why when you feel the weight of these boards. I'm not joking, they are quite heavy. I think he also hurt himself carrying them about, offloading them. I think he hurt his shoulder. So you all know what normal plasterboard's like, and when I say these are heavy, these really are heavy. Normal plasterboard's heavy. Pink fireproof plasterboard is heavy, but these are heavy again. You couldn't even lift, if these were 8 before, you couldn't lift it. You probably wouldn't get it off the ground. It's just nice and heavy. But yeah, so getting on well here. Nearly put on the piece that was the wrong size there. But yeah, just the last sheet here. And thought I wanted to give you a bit of background on what this stud wall was that I was going to be plastering. And I will also show you how I plaster the wall, and I'll go through all the stages on what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I'll try and explain as much as possible, get into all the details. But like I say, you have to make sure what you're plastering over is solid, guys. If the boards are bouncy, they're gonna crack. They're not gonna be, they're not gonna be good to plaster over. So that's why I'm really well fixing everything. So first job to plastering is, again, like I said, preparation. On this one particular, it's going to be just scrim taping, and that's scrimming all the joints. Typically I don't scrim around the corners on these unless I'm going to plaster the wall or the ceiling, but I will offer it up. People ask me all the time what do I mean by offering up. I will give you a close up to that with the scrim tape, what I'm actually doing, and you'll understand what I'm doing when you see it up close. Again, if you're going to plaster the whole room, I would fold it round the corner, but if not, you're just staying to the one wall. There's no point folding it around the corner, because you'll either have to patch it in, swipe it in, which you're creating a patch, or you'll have to cut the scrim tape off, which you could then use a Stanley knife, and then you're going to mark a wall that's you shouldn't be marking. So you can sort of see what I've done there. Offered the top scrim up. I'm using, I think this stuff's 3 inch that I'm using, or 1.5 inches. I think it's inch and a half, 2 inch. So I think this is 1.5 inches. So it's a wee bit wider than you would usually use on just normal joints. Again, if your plasterboard's nice and tight on the corners, you shouldn't really need to scrim tape it unless you're going to go around the corner and you want to fold it round. That would be about the only time you would really need to scrim tape. But if, like me, there's tiny wee gaps, you want to close it in with a bit of scrim, and that should help reduce any cracking. Again, I say this time and time again, scrim tape does not mean that the wall isn't going to crack. That it's just it's a bit of a buckles and braces, but the wall can still crack through scrim, guys. If there's movement in a house, or large amount of vibration, moisture, moisture, heat, temperatures, they all make a difference, and they can make things move and swell and buckle. And if that happens, the scrim tape isn't going to stop it cracking. It's the same as some houses. Been asked to price a lot of things recently, and people seem to want their outsides all meshed up with the fiberglass mesh. And I asked them, why is that? I'm talking, these are brand new block houses and they want them meshed up. And I'm asking, why is that? And they say that it'll stop cracks, but it won't stop cracks. It can help reduce them, yes, certainly. But through render, blocks, I've seen blocks cracking, guys, because of a bit of movement. So the fiberglass mesh isn't going to stop that crack appearing through the render, even with the mesh. In fact, what it might do is cause a bigger area to shell off and cause a bigger repair, possibly. Again, everything's all down to what ifs, but the likelihood is it won't be a clean crack, it'll be a big bust if it does crack. Again, it may be solid, but like I say, it's still only a bit of fiberglass. It's practically plastic netting. So that's, you don't pour that into foundations, you put concrete in. So if concrete cracks, then the chances are this stuff's going to crack. But anyway, back to this skim job, and you can see that it didn't come around the corner because I'm not plastering that wall. And same with the ceiling, not plastering the ceiling, so I'm just offering it up. That'll help bond the plaster, and it should help reduce cracking. And if you are doing a job for anybody and they want you to give them a guarantee that it's not going to crack, that's going to be virtually impossible, because new plaster can crack, and like I said, movement can make it crack. But if you don't scrim it, the chances are it will crack. But again, like I said there, it's not like I'm scrimming over the whole boards here, I'm just doing the joints. Similar to what I would do outside, I'd scrim up the areas that are likely to crack. And I don't know if the labour costs and the material costs for just doing all block would really be worth it. And the extra material to coat it and bed it in will be worth it in the long run. But here I am, mixing the plaster up with my cheap dust mask on. I'm using Carlite Ultra Finish on this one. It's pretty much the exact same as multi finish that you would get in B&Q or over in England. And again, very similar to skim coat that you would get down in Dublin. But yeah, it's a gypsum plaster. It works the same way. You mix it the same way, clean fresh water. You mix it to a lump-free consistency, like custard or peanut butter. Not quite peanut butter, that would be a wee bit stiff, but somewhere in between custard and peanut butter. Especially if you're new, you might want it a wee bit more on the stiff side, as that will reduce the chances of you dropping it, but it will also give you a bit of a sore arm. So really mix it to the consistency you're happy with. And again, if you mix it that wee bit looser, it will spread better for you, and you might have a wee bit more time with it as well. That being said, too wet and it's not going to be a good mix. It's going to be spilling all over the place, and it's going to be a bit weaker. Just dampening up my hawk here, my funny hawk. I know lots of plasterers think it's a strange one, but it's definitely helped my elbow out. Don't seem to get a sore elbow ever since I started using this hawk, and I'm not going to go back the way now and start using the Marshalltown or any straight one. I'm going to stick to the Pointsman one. That's pretty good. And the trowel I'm using is a refina stainless steel trowel. I think they're called a Finitex. And again, this one's it's not fully broken, but it's pretty much there. And what you will find, guys, when you're new to plastering is that a brand new trowel is going to make life that wee bit harder. A broken in trowel's much nicer to work with. It spreads and evens out the plaster that much easier, and when you come to finish it, it actually cuts it better and leaves less lines. Just much easier to use. But yeah, you have to break them in one way or the other, guys. They don't come, well, some say they're ready to go, ready broke in, but they're still not just quite there. They're just still not quite there. After a couple of months of using it, it will be a much better trowel. And what I'm doing here on the job is I'm filling all my scrims out. And like I was saying earlier, my tactic here is to push really, really hard. Make sure if there's any gaps, I completely fill in voids with my plaster. And I would usually do that, but more so on this one because we're going for a bit of a soundproof wall. So trying to make sure to fill all voids, and hopefully that will reduce any sound. And you can see that I've got my wee socket taped up down the bottom there. It's still live, so I'll have to be very careful around it and make sure I don't drop any plaster or water out. And yeah, so first method here, guys, is covering all my scrims. And again, it helps in so much different ways, because it helps also make sure the scrims are actually covered. If you're going to have a bit of a fault or flaw on the wall, it could be down to the scrims bubbling up or fraying. At least if you coat them all like this, if anything's like that, you can cut it, you can replace it, and you can change it, you can fix it. And also, when you coat them all like this and then you do 2 more coats, there's literally no chance of the scrims shining through later on. And after I get all my scrim tapes covered, I would usually then first coat the wall. And again, if you're only doing one wall, I do find it's quite okay to go ahead and sort of double coat it, and that would be, first coating it all and then just second coating it again, 5 minutes, sort of leave it 5 minutes or so, not going over it just straight away, but taking your time. Just still filling a couple of scrims along the top here, and really being cautious of them all, making sure they're well covered. But yeah, I know a lot of people would recommend doing the scrims and the first coat with one bucket and then mixing another bucket for the second coat, and that's grand. That's a very, very good way to go if you're a beginner, so that there's nothing wrong with that. If you need to do it in 2 mixes, that may actually be more beneficial. So for talk's sake, if it took you a half bag mixed up to first coat it all, then it's only really going to take you maybe just over a quarter bag to then second coat it. It takes a bit less to second coat it. If you think about it, it says 3 mil is your sort of average depth for skim coat. So if you're applying about 2 mil at the start, plus your scrims, it's going to need a wee bit more. Then another millimetre coat over the top of everything is plenty. You've got all your covering done. Then you've got your 3 mil in total. I do have questions where people say, how do you actually, how do you know how much you're putting on? But basically, that sort of just comes with experience. You get used to the depth of what you're putting on. And again, if you want as well, if you want to do a half bag mix and then another half bag mix and put on, roughly about 1.5 millimeters and then 1.5 millimeters, that's fine too. But you'll still will find your second coat will go that bit further, especially if you do it the way I'm doing it, where I covered all my scrim tapes first. So that's kind of the mix and the depth of coating done. So obviously the technique I've done here is I've covered all my scrims first, and then I've started to fire on my first coat, all with the same mix. And like I say, I'm going to do the whole thing with the same mix. But if you are new and you're not confident, do 2 smaller mixes and get it done that way, so it stays a bit fresher for you. But yeah, started top left, worked along top right, just using a hop up on this. Sometimes a bit of a nightmare with hop up, or even with step ladders with dust sheets on, because yourself to tangle up and stuff. But yeah, hop up here reaches the top of the ceiling, grand. And just taking my time, as it's quite warm, and I just want everything to go on as neat as possible. But I do have the big axe skim here, and I will show that very shortly and let you see the first look on my plastering with that on the channel. I'm sure it won't be the last look of it either. But yeah, I'll talk more about it when I get it on the video here, and I'll tell you what I think of it and stuff, and the benefits, and just what I like it over certain other brands possibly. But yeah, so top done here, and just to do the bottom left to bottom right now, and sort of with plastering, once you get into a bit of a routine with something, you always find the job goes that much smoother and better and more straightforward for yourself. You know, bit of chaos can be okay, but you know, you don't want to be all over the place. You want to have some kind of rhythm to it, and mine's is always starting top left to right and bottom left to right then, and that way you always know where you are, even when you're second coating. A lot of people struggle with second coating, especially, like I say, new to the trade. They struggle with trying to figure out where they've been, and this is one way to always know where you've been if you've got some kind of routine of top left to top right, bottom left, bottom right, and basically you know by your movements. I'm moving the crate, the suit each time, you know, so I know what area I'm going to cover with the hawk full, and then when you move the crate over again, then you should know where you're coat to. Also, you know, if you sort of look at it, it should look a bit fresher with the second coat than the first coat. But yeah, so even with the first coat, you want to try and leave as little lines as possible, and that reason is so if your first coat picks up and you go to put the second coat on, them lines don't leave you with tiger stripes later on. Something we did discuss in the channel a very long time ago. Tiger stripes, basically they are caused from uneven coatings, and like I said, they're, you know, if them lines start to tighten and you have to then second coat over them, you're going to get a bit of an uneven coating, and you're going to give yourself more work when it comes to troweling up. And you know, make that necessary. Tiger stripes doesn't mean the wall's not going to paint great, but just doesn't look just as sweet, doesn't look just as nice, and for that reason, that's why I'm giving you this information. And again, lots of plasterers don't really know how to stop the tiger stripes, but that's one way to go ahead about it. I think sponge floating also will help if you can get that done at a right timing as well. But again, none of the plasterers actually recommend, and they don't, you know, they actually say not to sponge float gypsum plaster. So that's one reason not to do it, and the other reason, if you can do it without needing a sponge, then all the better. Sometimes there is call for using a sponge float, the likes of a heavy wall that's very uneven, or reveals that are just going nasty, or two beads, a beam. Sometimes there is a good call for a sponge float, or a float for that matter too. I've seen people using a float with great effect. But yeah, so after every coating, guys, you're going to want to wash the trowel, and a good way to wash the trowel is holding it over the bucket here and washing all the dirt into the bucket, constantly washing your brush in between. It's very important, guys, believe it or not, because if you don't wash the trowel, especially the back of the trowel, you don't wash it, you will constantly deposit plaster to the ceiling. If you actually look up the top sort of left, there's a wee drop on the ceiling there, and that was from, well, I sort of hit it. But that's the kind of thing you'll get with a dirty trowel at the back. Once you're working up or around the angles, it'll leave deposits all around the place. And again, I'm always trying to show you the best way, my best way, my best methods. I'm always trying to save you time, save you effort, save you money, just trying to save you everything, guys. Really, I'm just a savior. But yeah, all that aside, guys, I'm just trying to give you the best advice possible, and keeping the trowel clean in between coats and in between trowels. Even if you find your trowel gets very, very dirty around the back when you're even first coating, give it a quick wash around the back. You don't have to necessarily wash the front, as you know. If you wash the front, you'll find you've wet the trowel, and you might start dropping stuff a bit more. So just sort of maybe concentrate in between coats and trowels, making sure the back of your trowel is always clean. And you can see there how quickly I get through more or less nearly a quarter of the wall there with one good hawkful. And you can see how far it's sort of spread. You know, the second coat really is a bit thinner, and again, the neater your first coat, the better for going forward, as your stuff will spread better. And again, like I said, I'm always trying to make it easier for you, and the neater you go, like if you take your time trying to get the lines out with this coat, it'll almost act like a flattening, and you're almost 2 stages ahead of yourself at that stage. But again, this video is more for the beginners, and you know, I don't expect you to be able to, you know, coat it just as neat, but I do expect you to try. That's all I would expect you to do, is to actually put a lot more effort in, even more effort than, you know, you will be putting more effort in than a tradesman, like the guy that's been doing it for 20 odd years. So that's one thing. Also, like I may have touched on in previous videos, is the trowel itself. I have a trowel here that's nearly broken, and that trowel alone, because it's nearly broken, it's this trowel's, you know, it's actually 98% there for me. I still have my first refina trowel, which is an absolute gem of a skimming trowel. It's so super sharp, and I don't cope with it anymore. I just trowel up with that one. But for this job, this trowel will do the whole thing, and then maybe later on a flexi trowel as well. But we'll get to that at that stage. We're on the second coat here. But yeah, back to that trowel. When you're new to the trade, you're most likely going to have a new trowel, and I was going to actually say to you, if you could pick up a second-hand trowel. Now, the thing about buying second-hand stuff is, you know, why is somebody selling it? So you need to make sure it's not damaged, or it's not about the, you know, the rivets. I might do a video covering this, might go into big detail in what's a good trowel to buy if it is second hand, and what's not a good trowel to buy if it's second hand, so that you have a head start. And the reason I want to cover all this is because buying a second hand trowel might be a bit of a game changer for you if you're coming into plastering, as you may think a new trowel's better, but a new trowel will give you extra work, it will give you extra effort. And if you could maybe just get a length of a trowel off a plasterer mate, the only thing is they may not give you the best trowel, but it'll be a bit more broken than the brand new trowel you buy off the shop, off the stores. Again, like I said previous, there is ready to go trowels, but they're just not quite sweet as a trowel that's been in the hands of a plasterer for, you know, even a month, 2 months. But you could touch lucky if there's somebody local that's maybe retiring, and they might be clearing out their shed and their van and offloading a lot of tools. That would be the ideal guy to buy the trowels and tools off, because he'll have trowels that are broken in and he has no need for them anymore. That would be the ideal type of salesman that you would be looking, somebody that's coming out of the game, more so than somebody that's just selling trowels that are maybe on their way out, or you know, maybe they shouldn't even have them, might not belong to them. But yeah, we'll not talk too much about that. But yeah, again, these refiner trowels do take a wee bit of breaking in, but when they're broken in, they're absolute brilliant trowels. Can't fault them. And you can see now I'm absolutely hammering through, and the angle of the trowel, guys, is quite flat, and you want to keep it as flat as possible. You don't want to open it up too much, because you will actually scrape the plaster back off the wall. So the idea is to put it on and not take it back off again at this stage. Maybe in the second coat we'll be cutting into it a wee bit more, trying to release some fat off it. But this stage you're only applying, so you're trying to flatten it in, so your trowel will be at a pretty flat angle. You're not opening it up too much, and you can see there's the odd line here for the demonstration. I left them in. No, but in all seriousness, if you can try and avoid leaving any lines at this stage, the next stage you're just gonna whiz round the wall. But yeah, after you get everything coated here, guys, it's back to the washing of the trowels and the washing of, make sure your drill's washed, your hawk's washed, your bucket scoop, your bucket. Make sure you've got clean water and stuff ready to go. And that's pretty much that on that stage. You'll then be just really hanging about for a flattening, which I'm going to show you here right now with the refina Scrim spatula, and what a cracking tool so far, with pretty good blade protector on it. I'm going to try and keep that as long as humanly possible. Again, I know it's brand new, but it's a good idea just to wet that blade, and that'll keep it a bit cleaner for a bit longer, and it'll also help reduce me cutting any plaster off, because this stage I'm just doing a flattening. Now that was the very first time I even pulled it across the wall, and straight away I thought, you know, that's lovely. It really flattened in, took some lines out, and I could see across my angle. It's giving the angles a bit of a straighten as well. You know, if you want to be real fussy, you can go ahead and get a 6 foot out or an 8 foot level or spirit level and throw it across the top and fill any voids out, just as you would sand cement or bonding coat something. You know, you're building things out hard wall, but you know, this is a boarded wall on a flat wall. It's all pretty flat, so no, nothing major. But again, this spatula it will show up something, as it's pretty wide for a spatula, but I am loving the rolled handle. I really liking the way it, you know, how I can bring it up so high. And it's, you know, the S-shaped ones are pretty good too, but this one, the roll on it just feels that wee bit more comfortable. And again, you can hold it with one hand. It's not a big issue, but it just shows you how quickly, like that actually does pass as a flattening, guys, as a bit of a first trial, because it's took out all the lines, and you can see very little came off the wall. The idea with your flattening is, and even your first trial up, you're not wanting to take stuff off the wall, guys. You're wanting to just flatten it in. And again, once you're finished with the tools, get them washed up and prepped for the next wall or ceiling, whatever it is you're going to do. Dirty tools are no good, guys, in plastering. I can tell you that. They're heavier, and they don't flatten in as nice. The handles aren't nice. You'll get blisters and tears in your hands. So try and keep your tools as clean as possible. I know it's a dirty job, but it doesn't mean we have to have our tools absolutely stinking. Again, cleanliness is the best thing. And like I said, get everything washed up, guys, before you go and take a tea break. But yeah, here we are now. I'm gonna give the wall, let it sit. I'd say I let this sit a good 15-20 minutes at that stage, because that Scrim flattened it in so well. I was happy enough that I could leave it for just a wee flick of water. Again, not even using a big brush here. It is quite warm, but the wall, believe it or not, the first coat sort of held it all back for the second coat. But yeah, starting top left to top right, and just sort of wiping the corners to go. And in previous videos I do say to you guys, use a tall's brush, a wee corner brush, and use that to clean your angles as you go. This brush here is quite fine, had it a wee while, it's a bit more broken in. Not a particularly expensive one, it's just one that it just came to hand quicker than have a nice refiner one that I prefer for smaller jobs. And again, it's quite nice and fine, where I literally don't even need a tussle brush with it, because it does the corners as well. But back to the job here. So I'm just using the water brush to wet the wall, and what that does is it sort of lubricates the wall and the trowel so that there's no friction between the two, and you're not tearing the plaster off, but you're gliding over and you're able to, basically you're adjusting the wall. If there's anything high, you're taking it off. And this tea really helped my throat, guys. My throat this day was absolutely destroyed, and this is another day where I'm doing the voiceover, and that tea really helped clear it up. But yeah, so again, what I was saying there, just lubricating the trowel to the wall so that it doesn't tear plaster off. And what we're trying to do here is flatten in any lines and fill out any holes or any bumps. We're carving them down, and this is where you really do want to spend time and attention to the wall. As well, in every stage you really want to give as much attention and time to the wall as possible, but obviously there is a time scale to it, because you know the wall's going to be set in 2 hours time. At this stage it's going to be completely brown, but that's why plastering, unlike some other trades, you can't just stop when you want. You have to go before the wall's doing. If this wall, when I flattened it in with the speed skim, what I showed you in previous skimming videos is you touch the wall, you get a feel of the wall, you maybe put the trowel over it, and you go to yourself, that wall's still a bit wet, there's still moisture in it, I can have a cup of tea, I can sit down for 10 minutes, so you sort of have to judge it. Somebody asked me to put timestamps on it, and it's very hard, because even the weather on this job, you would think it would actually set very quickly, but it took quite a bit of time to actually start to pull in, but then when it did start pulling in, it really did start going then. So if I start doing times on this and people try to copy the times, they're not gonna be happy, because weather has an impact, but certain walls have they have different suction levels, what we call in the trade hot. If a wall's hot, it means it's going to dry and set really, really quickly, and you don't want that. You really, really do not want that. But yeah, back to the wall here. Trowel along the top, cleaning my angles, pulling all water from left to right and down, so that there's no water stains left on the top of the wall. If you do leave water stains, what they can do later on is, if you keep on missing them, when you do eventually get the trowel over them, they will sort of tear and be hairy, and it could also then, it could leave, if you miss the fat stain altogether and it's painted over, it could actually leave what looks like big sort of line marks and drip marks. So you want to make sure you don't leave any water on the wall. You want to be taking it away. As you can see, I'm always chasing it from the toe to the heel, and that's constant, guys. That's from the top to the bottom, and you'll see I'm chasing the water into the corner, and then I'll actually have to then come back on myself and try and take it off. It does get, if you're new to the trade, it will get trickier, especially around that socket where I'm chasing all the water to. It will get trickier when you get to that corner, because at that stage you'll be sort of half enjoying running the trowel up the wall the way I'm doing there, nice long big strides, getting a nice feel of the wall, making sure it's smooth. You really ice the cake. But when you get to that bottom corner, it's a bit different. You have to pull the trowel the other way, and really when you get to about here, you want to start reducing the amount of water you're putting on. And again, I'm in somebody's house here. You don't want to be flooding the place, so you don't want to be putting big massive amounts of water. Again, you can use a spray bottle to try and control your water, but what a spray bottle gives you with a nice mist and a nice even bit of water, it reduces the fact that you just watch me wipe my trowel back and forward there, keeping the back of the trowel spotlessly clean while I'm working. You can't do that with a spray gun, which means, like I said, you're going to then leave some deposits on the wall and give yourself further work later on, having to then clean them angles down. But yeah, so as you can see now, I'm at the angle and pulling it across, And everything at this stage has gone very, very well. Exactly how you would want it to go. All the scrims are nice, well embedded, well covered. No scrims are shining through on me. No edges of boards are shining through. All my angles are pretty clean at this stage. If this wall was to set rapidly on me at this stage, I'm not going to be that concerned because I have everything filled in. I have all my bumps carved away. You know, the wall's just sitting now where you've almost beat it. You know, obviously each stage you come on, you're putting that wee bit more pressure on, and even now you can see I've opened the angle of the trowel that much more from when I was coating, and from the likes of when the speed skim there, the axe skim went across it. It went across pretty flat as well. Again, if I was trying to straighten out, I would open up the angle and start cutting it. Again, I'll try and go into a video and go into big detail on the likes of, you know, the angles of the trowel on each stage, on you know, from the coating to the cutting. And again, I'll go into a bit of detail on what would be a good trowel to sort of, you know, to purchase if you were buying second hand. You know, the wee things to look out for. Obviously most of you will be thinking as if it's straight, but again, I'll show you how to look down the trowel and stuff. Might be simple things to plasters that have even been at 5 years that they'll all know these things, but you only know these things because somebody else showed you, and I only know half the things because mostly again somebody else showed me, or I seen somebody else do it, or I went out of my way to learn it, or, you know. And you learn best when you make mistakes, guys, trust me. If you make a bad mistake, you'll never want to make it again. So you're just always trying to improve, try and better yourself, try and upgrade your level of plastering. You know, we're all learning every day, and you know, if I teach people stuff, I'm more than happy to. And if I think I'm saving you time, money, you know, anything, even if you're watching this, you have no intention of plastering a wall, you're just enjoying this video, watching somebody else smoothing the wall in, and that's grand too. But also, people have watched these videos and thought, you know, at least that's, you know, they have an understanding of how the job should be done and roughly the way it will be done. Obviously every plasterer does things their own way, and that's brilliant and that's grand. Like I say, we're always learning. We're back here now. This is basically the second wet trowel. So we've put on our first coat. We've covered the skims, put on our first coat, we've put on our second coat, we've given it all a flattening with the big refina spatula there, the axe skim. We then give it a first wet trowel. So this is now our second wet trowel. And again, like I said, I'm using the wee corner brush now, really, really paying attention to detail now, guys, because if I leave any stuff in past this stage, the stuff's really starting to set. You don't want to leave hard plaster on the walls or the ceiling that you're not going to plaster, because then you'll be dirty, and you don't want to leave dirty work. Again, somebody said, why not tape things up? You know, for instance, I was rendering a wall and the fella said, why would you not tape that wall? Why would you not tape up the window? It would save you so much more time. But I tend to disagree. Otherwise, I would tape up all the jobs I do. I'd tape up all the windows, I'd tape up all the doors. And the simple fact is, it doesn't really save you time, guys. As if you tape up windows and you plaster the reveals, you still have to wash that tape. You can't leave the tape dirty, because if you don't wash the tape, how do you know that it's straight? You need to know it's straight, so you need to wash the tape. You need to be able to see across your reveal, or your beam, whatever it is, your head. You need to be able to look across it from the bead to the back and know that it's clean and tidy and straight. Pardon me. So that's one reason. You know, taping up windows, you're still going to have to wash regardless, especially satin cement. If you don't wash it and it's hard the next day, say your scratch coat, you're going to have to scrape it then. And then what do? You're scraping the tape which could potentially damage the window frame, or just scraping the tape, and then the tape's harder to remove, which in turn slows you all down when you have to take it all back off again. So another thing then you have to do is you have to take it all off. So you not only have to put it all on, you have to buy the materials, and you have to add that onto the job. You then have to take it all off. You have to wash it. If you don't wash it, you are being dirty. If you just tape it up, you think that's fine. That's not fine, because you will leave drips around the edges, and you won't know what it looks like until you pull all the window off, and then you'll see your wee blemishes then. So you're not really saving time washing. The second thing is, I have seen tape causing people nightmares. When the sun hits it, it actually sort of like sealed to the window. Again, they may have used the wrong tape, but it did. It sealed to their aluminium frames. Obviously the heat with the metal and all, and they couldn't get it off, and that was an absolute nightmare. But again, that job it really did need taped up, because it was acrylic and the windows were very, very expensive. But again, we didn't cover it up, so yeah, that was okay, because the owner did it. But yeah, so taping up isn't always a fantastic job. Also, what I have seen, back to my point, was taped up windows, and then you get wee holes in the tape, and sand and cement or plaster gets down in them, and then it starts setting to bits of plastic on the window, bits of rubber, bits of glass, window sills. And then what happens then at the end of the job, when you take all your coverings off, you have a big clean up to do. So you're not particularly saving yourself any time there, because you've now got, if that was acrylic render and you taped everything up and a bit of acrylic in there, you're good luck getting it off. Where if you don't have any of that stuff on, you can see the window, you can see if it's clean, you can see if it's tidy, you can see if it's straight, you can see if it's right. But that goes for skirtings and all too. You can tape up skirtings and all too, but it can still get in behind the tape. After all, plaster is a bit of a liquid. It doesn't become a solid until it crystallizes and sets. But yeah, so it's all food for thought, guys. I'm not saying taping up's a bad thing. I've taped up lots of jobs. I've taped up wallpaper. That's when I was doing ceilings, just to save the wallpaper. I've taped up furniture's been taped up and all. So when you can't splice things, obviously you gotta tape it up, and you gotta protect it with plastic and all. But that's another thing too, guys. Plastic, why not just wash it as you go, and see if there's enough plastic in the place, then adding loads of plastic for every job you do, that's like how much rolls of plastic. But yeah, it does have its places, but also, like I say, if you do tape up, wash it as you go. Otherwise, you'll be back on to me and you'll be telling me how right it was. But again, just like the first wet trowel that I've done, the second wet trowel, I've just went along the top here, and I'm taking all my water down to the bottom, chasing the watermark down as I go, which is definitely what you're going to want to do, guys. You don't want to leave any of that. You can sort of see to my right there a bit of a watermark. You don't want to leave that. I will come across, I'm coming that direction, but you don't want to leave that anywhere up high. You want to make sure you're looking at the wall. Every now and again you might even want to, you may want to step back, have a wee look at the wall, make sure there's nothing bad in the way, you haven't left. Sometimes you need to step back from the job to see it properly, as you may be too close and you've missed something. You might have missed a dirty watermark up above your head or something, and you can easily just go and wipe it off with the trowel, clean the trowel so that the blade's still a bit wet, and get it wiped off. Don't leave it there for somebody else. The painter's most likely going to just paint over it. So yeah, on to the bottom here, chasing the water. I've got a phone call going, so I'm doing it one-handed, which means I have to flick the water on and chase it with the trowel as I go. But yeah, just being careful still, making sure to leave no holes and no lines as you go. Again, when I say toe to heel, I will sort of demonstrate that in a future video where we're a wee bit more, maybe just holding a trowel and explaining things. And again, this is pretty focused to the new to the trade, and the comments box is always open, and I'm pretty sure I replied to every comment I've ever got, which is probably in hundreds of thousands at this stage, guys. I'm not even joking. With the channel hitting nearly 6 million views, I probably have answered back over 100,000 people. I must look that up. I don't even know if I can see how many comments the channel has, but I would be surprised if it's not up there. I really would. But yeah, it's still, I don't think there's been a comment that I've ignored. Again, if you think I've ever ignored you, sometimes YouTube doesn't tend to notify me too well on the actual comments, and I have to manually scroll through. Sometimes when people comment on somebody else's comment, I struggle to find that, because it doesn't, when I click that, it just brings me to the video. It doesn't necessarily bring me to the comment. And when you comment on somebody else's comment, say that comment was 4 years ago, I would have to scroll through all the comments to find that specific comment, or remember what the video was and scroll down through all the comments to find that specific person that you basically, when you reply to them, you're replying to them. You're not directly saying it to me. It's more like a reply to the person that started the comments. So yeah, I'm only really learning this now about YouTube. I don't know if it's always been like that, but yeah, I figured that out a couple of times. Where it was like somebody said something, but I can't find it because it's not in the comments box, and that's actually what had been happening. They had been commenting on somebody else's comment, and I know that could happen by accident. You may not realise you've actually done that, but that's what's happened basically. But yeah, all that aside, guys, comments box is always open, and again, if you want to chat the other plasters on the channel, that's grand too. You can ask them, or you can agree with them, or you can disagree with me. Everything's grand. It doesn't really, at the end of the day, some people think you should float one way with your sand cement render, other people think the other things. It's got to be all down to the end result, and whether I've been doing this quite a long time now. The results I'm getting are still as good as the day I first went out and did jobs for myself, which was a long time ago as well. So, and again, I'm following methods and tweaking methods to suit myself. Scud coat and all, tweak things ever so slightly to make them that wee bit better. From what I learned, and the people I learned off they're absolutely top class. And again, I've learned things off everybody I've ever worked with. I've always tried to take the best of theirs and make them my own, or tweak it to make it suit myself and my style better. Even for instance, ceiling roses that I was plastering, I know it's a bit more fibrous. That's fibre hand. We'll be doing more of those molds as well. But for instance, even demolding them, I was able to learn that off an old timer who's, I think he's 70 or something. He says, "Why are you doing that? Do it like this." And if he never told me that, I'd still be doing it the hard way, the heavy way, which is ridiculous. So I'm very grateful for learning that wee trick. But back to skimming this wall, as you can see, guys, I've went along the top left, pulling my water down over to the top right, and then I've went from bottom left, chasing all the water into this corner. And you can now see the wall here. We're at the third trowel. It's starting to pick up. You can see it's setting underneath, that brown colour shining through around all the joints. Joints tend to set quicker because there's chalk on some of them, and the chalk, like if you rip the paper off plasterboard, it'll just be chalk behind, and if you ever put a bit of plaster over that, what you'll find is it's super hot, and it'll dry your plaster up nearly instantly. So that's why the edges tend to pull in that wee bit more. Although I really fed my plaster in, that will still eventually draw out the moisture and suck the moisture into the wall. So it's not a really bad thing, but again, that's something where you want to keep your eye on with your timings and stuff. And again, you'll find, guys, I'm here, I'm top left, the top right, and I'm just using the steel trowel again, just making sure I get a nice good cut on the wall. But yeah, like I was saying, what you want to do is keep an eye on the scrims, on the joints, that with your timings, that you have troweled it all in nice and early, because if things aren't straight at this stage, it's going to be very, very difficult to get them straight and flat, because this wall's pretty much gone. All I'm doing is making sure there's no wee pinholes, there's no any wee lines, there's no wee scrapes. Also, this is the part where you want to make sure you keep your trowel and your brush very, very clean. And again, this is why it was important to keep your angles clean, because if any wee hard bits of plaster tend to fall in, this is the time to tend to want to do it. But this is where wee stone gets into the trowel and scratches the wall right down, and it will break your heart, because you'll have to touch it up and touch it up and touch it up. But yeah, so to avoid that, just constantly make sure you've got clean water, clean brush, your angles are still clean, your trowel's clean. You don't touch the ground with the trowel at this stage. You don't want to draw up any stones up off the floor. And you've seen how quickly I'm getting around it at this stage. Like I said, guys, I might be putting more pressure on, and my trowel's a lot more open because I'm cutting into the wall that wee bit more, just releasing any wee bit of fat left, taking it off. And again, if there is any wee tiny pinholes, they're grand to fill in. There shouldn't be anything major at this stage. You should have been doing that previous trowels, from the first trowel, the first flattening, the first trowel, and the second trowel. We're now on this is technically a finishing trowel, guys. This is just a real double check on it. I will just throw the super flex over to talk about that a wee bit more in the future too. But this is, this is the last trowel, the last wet trowel anyway. I will throw the super flex back over it again with it being set solid, and all that'll do is it will just shine it up. But to me, it's an extra, just look around the wall, make sure there's nothing you missed. And so if there is, you may need to just mix up a wee taste and just put it in and trowel it in. It should actually pick up quicker because the wall's setting, and when plaster sets, it tends to give off a bit of heat. It's like a chemical reaction, and heat should help set off the plaster. But if you've been following this to the T, you shouldn't really need to do that, and you should be like I'm doing here, just putting the trowel over for the last time, the last wet trowel, and you should be grand to really walk away after this stage. Again, that's all that's came off the wall, just that one wee tiny bit of fat. And like I said, if there's any major holes, you don't want to fill it with that, because the fat tends to, it either doesn't really set well and it turns to dust, or even if you get it nicely filled into something, it can shrink. So and the reason it shrinks and skies is because it's more water than it is plaster. So when the water comes out of it, there's less material because the water's out, so it shrinks. So really, like I say, that's why you want to be having all them voids filled very early on. You don't want to be relying on your super flex to try and cut a bit of plaster off and fill it in somewhere, because like I say, it's you've just cut the fat off. It's not really plaster anymore. But yeah, very important, guys. Make sure them trowels are super, super clean. Before and after every trowel, just inspect them, make sure. And this is the way. I would just give it a quick dry run, and just making sure. Again, it's not a necessary thing to do. You can just look at the wall, make sure it's grand, but if you want to just put a little bit of shine on it, I'm not going mad here, I'm just really inspecting the wall, making sure there is nothing I've missed. Again, it's a lot of people don't really agree with it and don't think that it paints very well if you do this, but I don't think it's a terrible thing. If the wall dries out properly, it will paint grand, and you'll find some of the smoothness kind of it dulls down after a bit of time when it dries out well. But yeah, just making sure everything's perfect isn't a bad thing, guys, before you switch off for the day. Again, just following the same lines that I did from the top to the bottom, really. And I did do a bit of a cross trowel where I just walked along, and this is the perfect time to make sure your angles are all spotlessly clean. Again, the painter will thank us for it, guys. He'll whiz around the wall if it's all nice and clean angles. He can cut it in much easier, and it's going to look just a million times better.